Please be seated. Before we begin, I would like to extend the warmest of thanks to both Vicky Balmain and Kate Bassett of Somerville Funerals for their tireless efforts in organising this event today. We have a host of speakers today wishing to express their thoughts and feelings with you. Our first speaker is undoubtedly one of our fiercest. Michelle Harding is the brave and courageous mother who raised a son so compassionate that he sacrificed himself in the name of human rights. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and indeed in this case, it truly doesn't. Michelle is a loving, tender and warm soul, much like her son. We use the word orphan to describe a child who has lost both parents, the words widow and widower to describe a person who has lost their spouse. But there are no words in the English language to identify a person who has lost their child. This is because such a loss is incomprehensible. It violates the order in which life is supposed to progress. Yet despite this, Michelle has soldiered on, bringing awareness to the Kurdish situation, standing in solidarity with her new extended family, and regularly embarking on the most passionate, articulate, and insightful diatribes on social media. Michelle will now take to the stage to address us all. She'll be joined by her husband, Keith, who matches her in his greatness, sincerity, and passion. Please welcome both Keith and Michelle.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for coming today to remember our son Reece. A year has passed so quickly, and we have seen many changes in that year. The good news is that ISIS is now on the way to being defeated, and the ground and coalition air forces are now attacking them in their so-called capitals of Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq. The Kurdish fighters are a big part of this success, and with their brave ground forces. Of course, every good news is accompanied with sad news. We must remember those who have died and are still dying defending our humanity, and of course Rhys was one of those. Rhys was just one ordinary person who stood up against the evil of extremism. He is proof that one person can make a difference no matter who they are. There is no excuse for any of us not to make our voices heard to instigate change for the betterment of all mankind. It is true that evil will and does prevail when good people do nothing. Apathy is our worst enemy, and we stand by while others make decisions that we don't necessarily agree with. We all complain about our politicians, but we do nothing to instigate change. We have the power with our votes to make them accountable. United, we are strong and cannot be ignored. Reece cared about people and tried to make a difference in any way he could. He saw defenceless people being tortured and slaughtered by a barbaric and inhuman ideology that he knew would spread. We all sat back and ignored the danger as it was happening far from our comfortable, safe lives. He had the foresight to understand that this scourge of inhumanity would eventually touch our lives if we continued to ignore it. He saw with the Kurdish people that they were not prepared to do nothing and would defend themselves and us from this evil. I will not lie to you. I would have done anything to have stopped Reece going. Reece's sacrifice, although so utterly devastating to our family, has taught me a valuable lesson, as I was guilty of that apathy and ignorance as I cared only about my family's happiness and was unaware of the suffering of so many other people. I now ask you to honour Reece's memory by contributing in any small way you can in thinking about the world outside your immediate family. Please listen to what he wanted to convey to you and join us in trying to change things by making yourself and others aware of what is happening, and put pressure on our parliamentary representatives to do the decent thing so we can be a proud nation and stay true to our values. I also want you to understand the persecution and suffering endured for so long by the Kurdish people. Our previous Western governments made decisions whereby robbing them of their cultural homeland with a stroke of a pen that wiped Kurdistan off the world map. Lastly, I want Reece remembered for the way he lived and the laughter and fun he brought into our lives. He was a decent and loving young man, and I'm so proud that he is my son. We will miss and love him forever and a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith and Michelle. I now invite to the stage Rowand Aziz to speak on behalf of the PYD.
To the mother, father, family, and friends of Martyr Rhys Harding. We are gathered here today to mark the first anniversary of the martyrdom of our dear comrade, Haval Bakok Sarhad, Rhys Harding. Rhys was a man who refused to just watch the ongoing struggle between good and evil. He was a man who decided to join the fight against an unjust aggressor, a violent cult who came from the dustbins of history to attack noble human values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and the brotherhood of people. Those ideals were earned after bitter battles throughout history in Mesopotamia, and they have been represented by the Kurdish liberation movement since. He courageously chose to stand on the side of justice, defending humanity and its values. He remained loyal to his cause until the last drop of his blood was spilled. It was these noble deeds, these noble ideals that humanity needs today. Basically, we need more Rheces in the world. In the culture of our movement, we make the martyrdom of a comrade an occasion to achieve more victories. We can now see that this has been achieved. A year after the martyrdom of Comrade Bakok Sarhad, as Daesh is pushed further and further back. His comrades have liberated all of the lands in Al Jazeera, Kobani, and Tel Abyad from the so-called Islamic State, Daesh. And Manbij is now besieged and will hopefully be liberated in the very near future. This will cut the supply route between Turkey, which supports terrorism, and the capital of terrorism, Raqqa. Unfortunately, this is a war, and in war, such victories could have only been achieved by the sacrifices of our brave comrades, brave individuals like Bakok Sarhad, Rhys Harding. In honor of the international fighters in Yepaga ranks who have been martyred, PYD have built a monument in the city of Kamishlo to commemorate them. Naturally, this includes Haval Rhys Harding. The martyrdom of Comrade Sarhad reminds us that we have two great historic tasks to accomplish. First, we must continue our struggle until we root out terrorism, drain its resources, and challenge those who support them, and change their aggressive, hostile mentality. Second, we must continue to develop and strengthen our relations and bonds of brotherhood between the Kurdish and Australian peoples to achieve the necessary socio-political, diplomatic, and cultural solidarity. Anyone who loves our martyr and wishes to respect his memory must commit to these two tasks as a measure of his love and devotion to Shaheed Rhys. For this cause is what he gave his life for, and it is ultimately what he will be remembered for by 45 million people. As Kurds, we reaffirm to you, the family and friends of Rhys Harding, that we will remain faithful to our martyr Shaheed Sarhad and his fellow martyrs who have sacrificed their lives to achieve their goals. Long live freedom, democracy, and the brotherhood of nations. Long live our martyrs, and long live the spirit of Rhys Harding.
Thank you, Rowand. Our next speaker is Ismet Tashtan from the Kurdish National Congress. The Kurdistan National Congress is a coalition of organisations from across the world formed by politicians, lawyers and activists. The Congress brings together representatives from across the Kurdish region to lobby national governments, the EU and the UN to raise awareness of the situation in Kurdistan through the media and in public forums. The Congress also works alongside politicians, human rights groups and NGOs to bring attention to political issues and human rights violations in Kurdistan. I now invite Ismet to speak to us.
Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to pay my respect to the family of Shahid Reece Harding. Naturally, it is sad reminder. However, must also not allow Reece's sacrifice to be in vain. It is for this reason that we are gathered here today, remember Reece's and to embrace his legacy. His legacy is one that goes beyond Kurdish movements. His legacy is one of internationalism. It is one of the humanism. It goes beyond mere social construction. It goes beyond ethnic division. It is going religion, beliefs, and it goes beyond national borders. Rhys has become a flame that warms the heart of every revolutionary of Rojava, be they Kurds or international volunteers. His spirit lives in our Rojava in Kurdistan, but most importantly also in our hearts. Shahid Namirin.
Thank you, Ismet. They say martyrdom is not the end of something, it is only the beginning. Listening to our first few speakers today, it is clear that Rhys has had an active role in bridging together the greater Kurdish community in Australia. Addressing us next will be Renahi Kwandil, President of the Kurdish Democratic Community Centre of New South Wales.
Thank you. On behalf of the Kurdish Democratic Community Centre of New South Wales, I am grateful to thank you, Michelle, Keith, and Jordan, for allowing us to gather and have a remembrance ceremony for Shahid Reece Bakok Serhat. Shahid Bakok Serhat, today is 1 year since you were taken from us in the horrible and unjust battle. We as Kurds, we are proud to have you. We could not agree with you more in stand against injustice and unfair violence against us Kurds. Michelle, Keith, and Jordan, please accept our deepest condolence from the Kurdish community. We are proud of your hard work. We Kurds always believed ourselves to be alone in our fight. We said no friends but the mountain. But you, Shahid Reece Bakok, proved to us and showed us we are not alone. Shahid Reece said, you don't need to be a Kurd to stand for Kurdistan. You just need to be human. We cannot stress enough that Reece lived a blessed life in Australia. He joined the YPG with the intention to help kids and innocent people. Shahid Reece, you knew they were destroyed our country, forbade our language, forbanned our color, bombed our houses, burned our villages, killed children, and denied our every existence. Reece, sweetheart, we Kurds are determined and promise you to continue your legacy. You and your family are loved by us. We are pleased to be accepted into your extended family. Shahid Reece sacrificed his life for us so that others could live freely. Thank you, Reece. Brother Shahid Bakok Serhat, you can rest in peace now. We will never forget you, and we will remain faithful to you and other martyrs. We are hoping our beautiful Kurdistan will be liberated in the very near future, and we need to continue to develop and strengthen our relationship and bond of brotherhood between Kurdish and Australia people. Thank you, Shahid Namirin.
Thank you, Renahi, for both your words and for helping to organise and coordinate this event today. Our next speaker defies introduction. No words are worthy of his sacrifice. He is, of course, Ashley Doble. Ashley's background was very similar to Reece's. Both were young, sociable, fun-loving Queenslanders. Ashley and Rhys met while fighting in Rojava for the Kurdish People's Protection Unit, or the YPG, and forged a close friendship. Ashley has since returned home, and we are all beyond appreciative and grateful of his presence here today, his good health, and his safety. He is a de facto son and brother to us all. It is with great honour that I ask you to please welcome Ashley Doble.
Yes, sit. Thank you. I'm not too good at this stuff, eh? So I've written down a couple of stories that I wanted to share. But I'll just start off with, I first met Reece over there, and he was probably one straight away, you could just tell he was just a good bloke, genuine bloke, nice bloke, heart of gold. And just right from the get-go, you could just tell. Yeah. He went over to stop ISIS because he was sick of the atrocities they were committing. They were raping, pillaging, selling women, murdering, beheading whoever they wanted. They didn't discriminate through religion, or they really don't care about anything. It's just what they want to do. When we first got through, we were in a unit with a lot of Westerners. We went up to the Abdulaziz Mountains, and the commander said to us, "Who wants to go?" And immediately Reece put his hand up, and I went with him and a few other lads, and we were checking out a few villages, and we had to do a few things there. And as we're approaching a big city, about 50 square kilometres, I'd say, about 200 metres out from there, there was a smaller village that was quite large. And as we approached it, the first vehicle hit a roadside bomb, was blown up, and we went to the side of that. And for 48 hours we were in the blistering heat under heavy rain. And on the second day, I remember I was just chilling there with Reece and we're having a chat. And he looks at me and he says, "I really have to go to the toilet." I said, "Well, go then." And he says, "I haven't got any toilet paper." And I looked at him and I was just like, "I don't have any either, mate." So he went for a bit of a stroll and came back 15 minutes later and his sleeve was missing. But from that point forward, Reece and I and a couple of other lads really bonded due to the circumstances we were under. Because as much funny stories we shared that day, we also lost 5 good people. But after that, we headed back to town and we stopped in one town and I went to go get a kebab. And I walked out and everyone had gone. And I messaged Reece, I was like, "Where are you?" And he said, "Oh, we're back at base." I was like, "Oh, that's not good." I said, "I'll see you later," and on the way back I stopped at the bottle-o and I picked up a bit of whiskey and all of us lads shared it that night. And we shared some good stories. About a couple of weeks on from that, we joined a team called Group Sabotage. And that's when things started to get really serious. Most days we'd spend just talking, going out and doing certain things. And then about a week before he died, we were on one operation about, I think it was 47 kilometres from Raqqa. And we had to check this one village out. And as we approached the village, it was our commander, Joe, Reece and myself. And then Joe grabbed the commander and screamed, "Watch out." He almost tripped a wire rigged to 200 kilos of explosives, which in hindsight would have killed all of us. And once we finished clearing that village, we sat down and we started having some chai, because we found a kettle in a burnt out mud hut. And we were just there talking for a bit, and then a few of the other lads rocked up. And then, as we're talking, a mortar hit about 15 metres from us. And then everyone spilt their chai, except me. So I told Rhys if he played music, I'd share it with him. Because he always shared food with the lads, and we just spent a couple of hours just chilling out. And leading up to his passing was a minor city towards Raqqa. Up until that point, we lost a lot of people. And we all knew what could possibly happen. And then, on the day he died, they had to go forward because ISIS had come back with heavy artillery. "22 people died the same day Reece died. Then I wasn't there that day. I found out later the next day when we went to the hospital. And then we sat there for hours. We couldn't believe it because out of all the people, it had to be one of the most genuinely nice blokes you would ever meet. But we decided on that point, all we can really do is just share the memories and the good times, because if we let those memories die, then Reece isn't alive with us anymore. Thank you.
Can I just say a big... I'd just like quickly to say thank you to Ashley, because I know for the time that Reece was over there, they were very close and looked after each other. So thank you, Ashley, for all you did for Reece.
Thank you, Ashley. Your valour, fearlessness and heroism are to be commended. I now invite Deniz Özer to speak to us on behalf of the Kurdish Democratic Community Centre of Victoria.
Dear friends and comrades, on behalf of the Kurdish community, I would like to thank you all for having us here on this special occasion. We gather here today to commemorate the life and legacy of our hero, Rhys Harding. Whilst most of us in the Kurdish community never had the pleasure and honour of meeting Rhys, he has had a truly deep impact on us all and left us with much sadness. Rhys, for his courage, selflessness, and willingness to make the world a better place, has inspired us all. To us in the Kurdish community, Rhys is our hero. As Kurds, at times, we feel like we are stuck on an isolated island, not knowing how to swim. We feel that the rough terrains of the mountains are our only friends. We feel that the dark clouds are coming down on us, and no one cares. Whilst we fight the barbaric ISIS for our freedom, democracy, and liberty, the world has failed to show us adequate support. We have such thoughts of isolation as our comrades fight with a lack of weapons, a lack of basic medical supplies, as the United Nations refuse to have us on the negotiation tables for peace and resolution. As our own country that we love in Australia threatens to call our heroes criminals. At times, we feel isolated and unimportant to the world. But at those times, we must remember the likes of Rhys Harding, those who stood by us during our most difficult times. As Rhys once said, you don't have to be a Kurd to stand up for Kurdistan. You just need to be human. Rhys went to Rojava to make a difference, to fight against the evil of ISIS. Rhys joined our tremendous comrades in the YPG and YPJ. It is mind-blowing when thinking about what the YPG and YPJ have achieved in Kurdistan. Despite having a severe lack of weapons, of basic medical supplies, being severely undermanned, our comrades have shown heart and tremendous courage to defy all odds. What most say was unachievable, our comrades are achieving. Our comrades have fought to save the lives of Yazidi women on Mount Sinjar. They have protected our children in remote parts of Kobani. They have kept families together in cities such as Raqqa. Whilst achieving miracles and saving the lives of so many innocent people, many of our comrades have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Today, we pay our respects to Rhys and to all our fallen comrades who have fought for freedom, peace, and democracy in Kurdistan. I'm sure Michelle would rightfully give anything away today not to be in this chapel. To be home on a Sunday afternoon, having Rhys on the couch, recovering from a big Saturday night out with his mates. I'm sure Keith would much rather be sitting next to him on that couch, having a laugh before he heads off to the races for the day. And I'm sure Jordan would much rather be sharing a beer with his brother whilst discussing the footy. You see, Reece wasn't the only person who paid the ultimate sacrifice on the battlefields of Rojava. So did his family. In Kurdish, we say Shahid Namarin. Our martyrs never die. We owe it to the Harding family that Reece lives on in every one of us, and that we continue his legacy. We owe it to Reece, we owe it to the Hardings, we all owe it to all our fallen comrades along the way, and we owe it to all our comrades who are still on the battlefields of Rojava today. Today we are filled with sadness as we remember our fallen comrade. However, let us wake up tomorrow feeling inspired by the heroic actions of Reece. Let's speak about the ongoing injustices to the media. Let's have our voices heard by our politicians. Let's speak about what's going on to our friends and raising awareness. Let's send aid and donate to those who are suffering. In honour of Reece, let's all make a difference. Just like Reece, let's make a stance to make a change in this world. Not just for you and for me, but for those people who we will never meet. To us, the Kurds, Reece was a humanitarian. He was an inspiration. And above all, he was our hero, Shahid Namarin.
Thank you, Deniz. Our next speaker is a particularly special one. She's an 11-year-old Kurdish Australian girl who has travelled from Adelaide to be here with us today. She was incredibly moved by Reece's heroic story and couldn't resist the opportunity to speak her thoughts before you all. Please welcome Connie Sadafi.
Dear Reece, my name is Connie and I'm an Aussie Kurd. When I heard your name a year ago, I did not know who you are. But very quickly I learnt that you're a hero, like Superman, but much, much more courageous. 1 year ago, my father told me a story of a young Australian who had lost his life fighting for my people. His name was Reece Harding. I thought to myself and told my dad, Dad, I can also raise money to help Reece's family. My dad tugs me and we both cried. I thought that I could take away the Harding family's pain by raising money to help them. I then raised money to help donate to the fund to bring Reece home. You went to a very dangerous place and you fought for my people, for my homeland, for Kurdistan. You helped save the children and all the people trying to live in the war. I am so sad, Reece, that I never got to give you a hug, but I know you're in a better place now. Children my age like to be superheroes, like Wonder Woman, Superman and Batman. But to me, you, Ashley and James are my superheroes. Thank you for being my superhero, Reece. Love, Connie.
Thank you, Connie, and my apologies. She's not 11, she's only 9. I now invite to the stage two of Reece's close friends, Harley and Jamie.
Good afternoon to all of Reece's family, friends, and all of the community, Kurdish community that are here today. My name is Harley Berrick, and I'm one of the many long-term friends here today to celebrate the remembrance of Rhys Harding. I was asked by Reece's dad, Keith, before you today, and say a few words about Rhys. I paused for a second and told him that I'm terrible at speeches, but Keith said to me, as long as it comes from the heart, that's what counts. So here I am, standing before you today to say a little bit about Rhys, because I know if something was to happen to me, Rhys would have done the exact same on my behalf. As I sat down with the pen and paper, I looked down at the empty lines on the page. I did not know how to start or what to say. How do you explain a man who is so caring, kind, and unique? How do you start? How do you describe a man who treated everyone with dignity and love? Words cannot start to explain how much Rhys meant to me, how much he meant to all his friends, and how much we all miss him. As I look back to the many years of memories we all spent together, drinking, partying, hanging out at Connie and Carl's place like we lived there ourselves, and even going out to all the pubs and clubs when Rhys was underage. As we all knew, he grew a chest and facial hair faster than a sheep grows its coat. There was much more to Rhys than meets the eye. I was lucky enough to see a man who wasn't afraid to speak openly about problems if they were on his mind, a man who wasn't afraid to cry when he was upset, and a friend who always had time to listen. Rhys wore his heart on his sleeve, as we all know, and would stop what he was doing to help friends when needed, regardless of the distance or person. Rhys faced a lot of tough challenges in his life, which would affect any person dramatically, but Rhys still smiled through all this and continued to be there for his friends. With me moving up north, it made things hard, but all of us guys remained in contact, one way or another. Caught up when I visited, and yes, drank and went out clubbing. I remember this one particular time when I was in Bali. I ran into Rhys at Alley Cats in Kuta. I had to double look, not because I was heavily intoxicated, but because I couldn't believe Rhys was there. So we sat down, he introduced me to all his European friends, mostly girls, that he had met, and we smashed down numerous amounts of double-doubles. Rhys always had a love for adventure and doing things he believed in, and sadly, it was this one last adventure that he met his end. I remember the day we all found out. It was through Facebook Messenger. We didn't want to believe it. It wasn't real, and nothing was confirmed. This caused us boys to argue against one another because it was our friend Rhys. Sure, I was devastated. Words cannot describe the pain, anger, and heartache I was feeling, but I knew this was a thing that Rhys wanted to do. Rhys wanted to make a stand and use his beliefs to show the dedication he had to help others in need and go above and beyond what any one of us boys thought he would ever do. To be honest, I knew nothing about the YPG and what they did. Sure, I had heard about the conflict, but nothing to the extent of what was actually going on. And Rhys made me see. So yes, I was upset beyond words, but about Rhys passing away. So yes, I was upset beyond words, but Rhys passed away helping others. His death was not in vain. feel like an old lady here shaking.
You are.
Time has gone by so fast, it does not feel like a year since we said our goodbyes. And it does not get any easier. No one cares left. I've had the pleasure of knowing this kind, generous and caring young man that was taken from us so soon. But more importantly, I've had the honour to call Reece Harding my close mate. My condolences and deepest sympathies to Reece's family and loved ones. We are all proud to have known such a young man. Thank you.
You could really
Thank you, Harley. Our final speaker this afternoon is Jordan Harding. Jordan is the younger brother of our beloved Reece. Jordan is an intelligent, composed and resilient character. His brother's passing came during his HSC year, a year tough enough as is. However, he was unwavering in his commitment to his studies, while at the same time being a pillar of hope, support and love for his parents. When we speak of Reece being a brother, son and friend to us all, we also speak of Jordan being a brother, son and friend to us all. The bond between siblings can never be replaced, but Jordan, I promise you, you now have 45 million cousins scattered across the entire world. You are welcome in all of our homes and hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jordan.
I'd first like to thank everyone here for attending again. I've not seen Reece in over a year, yet it feels like yesterday I last saw him at the airport. Seeing him off was like any other ordinary goodbye, with the usual exchanges of the words that consisted of goodbye, stay safe. It is only now that I wish I'd said more to him. I often find myself reflecting on that day. Could I have seen the signs? Could I have stopped in the war? We all remember Reece in different ways. To some, he was a courageous man who valiantly fought against ISIS, while to others, he was a typical male in his 20s, working during the week and partying on the weekend. The various ways in which we remember my brother is what makes his legacy so special. Whether we remember him for his partygoer antics, for his hard-working ethic in the workplace, or for his final moments in Syria, I can confidently say that he left an imprint on all of our hearts. To me, he was my only brother. Growing up, we had never been too close to each other. Now, whether that was due to me being the annoying child or him being the moody teenager is debatable. However, as we grew older, we began to become closer. One early Saturday morning, at around 6 a.m., I was sound asleep, snuggled up in my sheets, when all of a sudden, my bedroom door creaks open. Before I could roll over, a leg slowly wrapped around me. Horrified, I sprung out of the bed in a blink of an eye. Lo and behold, there was a drunken Reece, stripped down to nothing but his boxers, lying in my bed. In his tipsy trance, he had mistaken my bedroom for his, and myself for one of his pillows. I'd always wanted to become closer to my brother, but this was a little too close for comfort. So I had two options: move Reece back to his room, or leave him be and start my day nice and early. After several loud calls of, "Psst, Reece, Reece, Reece," without a response, I decided that the latter option was the only option. Since that traumatic day, Reece and I continued to become closer. Upon passing my driving test, I took over Mum's role as Reece's designated driver on the weekends. While they only lasted for 10 minutes, the car rides offered some of my best and most cherished memories of Reece. With the help of a drink or two, Reece was always eager to talk. Whether it was talking about girls or offering life advice that was sometimes questionable, I will always value the short times that we spent together. I often think about Reece and what we could have become together. It's very easy to be trapped in a fantasy world where we imagine what life would be like if Reece was still here. But we should always remember Reece for who he was and the memories that we made for him, that we made with him. As each day passes, I know that Reece will always be in my heart, accompanying me throughout my life. Although time may pass and gradually lighten our heavy hearts, we can always find solace in reflecting on the joyous times we shared with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. That concludes our speeches for today. Once again, on behalf of Keith, Michelle and Jordan, I thank you all for being here today, whether you've come from near or from far. Please remain seated and await instructions as to how and when we are exiting the room, as there is a bit of a process to this. Thank you.